Welcome to Mick and the Psychic, where we leave no stone unturned as we explore all things outside the apparent physical realm.
There is no intent to teach or make you believe or disbelieve anything. It is just a safe space to listen and explore with us.
So for this next episode, you have permission to open your heart and mind as you join myself and Xavier on this deep dive into the unknown.
Mountain. And so I see essential oils as almost being the soul of a plant. So one of the things I love about frankincense, which is known as the king of the oils, he helps with healing the divine masculine.
Today on the show, we have a very special guest, actually, Adam Barralet. You might know him as one of Australia's premier spiritual teachers, working with essential oils, crystals, animal guides, tarot, astrology, mythology, lots of things. And he's always in plants and nature, hence why he's out in the Australian jungle right now. Don't worry about the white backdrop. Adam uses the magic of nature to help people around the world change their lives and reconnect with the blessings of nature's gifts. And he's here today to help us, well, I guess, discover the secret messages the universe eagerly wants us to hear. So welcome, Adam. Welcome to the show.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. I'm rapt to be here.
Awesome. We feel very special having you on the show. So thank you. I love your shirt, by the way. For those who can't see it that are listening on a podcast, sorry.
It looks amazing. Just trust us. Yeah.
Everyone on Apple Podcasts is just going, yeah, all right, thanks for that. Yeah, I'm sure it's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's great. It's great to have you here. And you were saying just earlier before we started the podcast that you're just back in the country. So where have you been?
What's going on?
So
why have you abandoned us?
Well, there's people everywhere, and I'm a bit of a Gemini, and I like to try a little bit of everything. So my hometown is Perth, Western Australia. That's where I grew up. But an opportunity actually came up just after COVID to go to a small Middle Eastern country. Most people had to Google it, including myself, called Bahrain, which is like the Tasmania of Saudi Arabia. So I'm over there, which is a really amazing experience. I'm doing a lot of work with sharing essential oils and the benefits for the body, mind, and soul there. But also, obviously, going from Australia to living in the Middle East, I've traveled through Asia, I've lived in North America, I've been through Europe, and the Middle East is totally different, very different to what Westerners believe. I remember having a really great chat with a Canadian who's been there for about 6 months as well. Lovely people, very empowered women, not a single tree for me to see, and the only animals I see are the occasional stray cat and pigeons kind of thing. So for someone who loves nature, that's a challenge, but the people are absolutely amazing and so respectful and humble, and it's good and challenging at the same time.
So the fact that there's no trees or stuff out there, I mean, when we talk Bahrain and essential oils, we're probably not talking about the oils that you're talking about. It's probably more the ones that are, fueling vehicles and planes and stuff like that. Is there like this crazy need for essential oils because they just haven't got the trees and stuff out there, or like what's...
Yeah, very much so. There are so many. What I discovered over the last 30 years of working with essential oils is how much they can actually help us with our physical health and well-being. And I used to be covered in eczema, and if you're watching me 8 years ago, I would have scratched the whole time we were chatting. Wow. And it was through using essential oils that I actually found a solution for that. But one thing that I love about essential oils is you may have heard of Shinrin-yoku, which is a Japanese term meaning forest bathing. Mm-hmm. And they found that when we go out into the forest, when we're out in nature, we breathe in these different things called phytonosides, and it helps us relax, and it helps with stress and sleep and pain and all these different things. What they discovered is what the trees are releasing is what's found in essential oils. So when you can't be out in nature, they've found the next best thing is to bring nature into the home. So by just diffusing essential oils in the home, you're actually bringing in the benefits of nature. So yes, when I'm in an environment and when, everyone's living on this, desert island, which it is, with no nature, we can bring the oils into our home for a whole range of things. But just by having them diffusing, it's like having a European forest or an Australian forest in the home.
Wow, that was a similar question that I had. I was just wondering, like, do you have to do extra work with the oils and crystals to help ground yourself? But then sand is nature, and is there enough of that around, or is it just different because it's not as grounding as sitting outside on the earth? Like, there's no plants like to have those beautiful energy coming through, but sand are not enough.
I think probably yes. You could still, I'm living more in part of the city as well, because it makes it easy for me to educate. So I don't, I'm blessed in Australia to kind of be a little bit out of the city and surrounded by where the kangaroos hang out. But there I'm in a city, so there's no essence of nature type of thing. So you're really leaning into those tools with your crystals, with your essential oils, and that type of thing. Everywhere in the world has a different energy. And I'm not just talking about the city, I'm talking about the land. And it's just becoming accustomed to this kind of desert energy, which is very different to, I'm a bit of I'm not a beach person, I'm a tree person. And I'm sure other people, resonate with different landscapes. And it's just becoming to terms with the desert. And it can be, again, both challenging, but also a really great experience.
Yeah.
Can you mess with that? Like, I mean, bringing essential oils that, as obviously these fragrances and these oils have come from different parts of the world. Are we kind of doing like, what the English did with Australia, bringing in foxes and deer and stuff like that? Can you muck up an energy by bringing stuff in? Like, does it mess with it at all?
Not that I've found. I guess, you want to, the reason I do it, and I guess other people do it, anyone who is maybe an expat from a different country, they like to have a few creature comforts that remind them of home. And that just makes them feel secure. I guess it's about getting that balance of not becoming, not hiding in my little apartment with my 3 house plants, my essential oils and my crystals and going, oh my God, I'm stuck. It's about feeling comfortable, reinvigorating, but also embracing the environment you're in as well. So that's what I try to do.
Yeah.
And you're helping others. Sorry, Michael. You're helping people as well of different ways that they can feel grounded, because there might be that element missing where they're living. You might be obviously helping them find other ways to ground themselves and connect with nature that's not available to them. And I'm sure because we're all creatures of nature, I don't think it would matter so much where you're living, but bringing in that energy is all natural and beautiful, so it can't be bad for you. I just think of eating. It's making me think of when we eat out of season. When our bodies are living in a certain area and we've acclimatized to it. Yeah, it's sort of like what Michael's thinking, like maybe it's bringing a different energy that you're not used to, you haven't grown up with. If they've lived there all their life, it might feel a bit strange mixing in different energies that it's not in their natural environment.
Well, the interesting thing about Bahrain, and I guess a lot of the Middle East, is because it is a desert, a lot of things are imported. You can't, exactly. So, when it comes to your food, everything's a lot of brought in and that type of thing as well. So I guess in some ways, are humans probably meant to live in the desert? Probably not the most sustainable place in that way type of thing.
Helping them. There you go.
Yeah. So I guess it's bringing in different gifts of nature from other places around the world. That they really resonate with a lot of the resin oils, so things like frankincense and myrrh, which are from that kind of region as well. And we've had interesting discussions about where you get resin oils like frankincense, myrrh, or other things that are known as like copaiba or elemi. They seem to come from places that have a kind of the word dark is probably not the correct word, but a dark mysticism or that kind of magic. And the resin oils are very much about that. So there's, I think that as long as everything's done in harmony and in balance and in respect and not with the attitude of, I'm trying to change an environment. I get the fox idea and the cane toad idea and that type of thing as well.
I just didn't know if it's possible. It might not be possible to actually mess with energies if you're bringing in stuff from nature.
With a good intention as well.
Yeah. And I think as well, like I was about to say, we create our own, sometimes no matter what city you're in, if you're in a city, you create your own desert island in where you live because, you're not surrounded by that nature. And as I say that, I'm actually going to give my plant some water. The poor thing. I think you see it in the background going, hey, hypocrite, give me some of your drink. That's terrible. I'm feeling really conscious about my plant now. By the end of the interview, it'll be up, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But like it's, we kind of create that. I guess what you're doing in Bahrain is kind of what we need to do within our own homes, if we're in apartments or in cities, to be able to bring some of that in for our own energy.
Oh, so much so that, obviously in generations past, and we've kind of evolved as a species very, very quickly from how much we are connected to nature and to now where we're not. And some people some people don't know when it's a full moon. Some people don't, we live in climate controlled conditions where it doesn't matter if it's 37 degrees or 13 degrees outside, you can walk around in a t-shirt inside. So I think wherever we're connecting with nature more is really, really important. So however we do that, and the more we can bring gifts of nature into our home, when we can't get out in nature, I think that's really powerful and important to do.
We love interviewing experts from different fields about all things outside the apparent physical realm.
And the one constant is these phenomena are transmitted through energy.
So we sought out and teamed up with Subtle Energy Science
to bring you, our listeners,
energetic encoded technology you can use on your phone, laptop, computer, or tablet,
turning your device into a powerful personal quantum energy tool. Now, we're not the creators, or are we qualified enough to explain it at all, but there is a mind-blowing number of scientific studies available on their website.
We get to try the range ourselves so we can give an honest review. And until the end of April, we've got 20% off The Mystic with promo code MATP-861.
And I love using The Mystic. I love it more than anything else. And I notice it really helps if you want to open up your heart or tune in to a deeper awareness.
Now back to the show. Yeah, I've definitely been learning over the years to try to surround myself with more and more natural products and not artificial fragrances and things like that. No, I'm just realized, I thought, well, I've just recently, my husband and I have fallen in love with oud oils. And so
yes.
you would have been very much exposed to, they're beautiful because you're the fragrances and essential oils, and then oud, am I saying it right? Oud fragrances ouds have beautiful real essential oils like frankincense. And I'm actually wearing one today, as I like the sweeter ones rather than a barnyard, as they call it, smell.
Yes, yep.
I like the sweet, like one called Sweet Date. And I wear that with some other, like as a layering. But I love that they're real essential oils in the fragrances. So you're just more connected to nature and you're getting some benefits from it as well. It's better for your skin and your body.
Oh, very much so. One thing.
You had fun with that?
Yeah. Well, when I first went to the Middle East, the second day I was there, I was like, right, I'm going to go to one of their large shopping centers to kind of just get what is this place like? I'd never been there before. So I went to one. And, you've got your shops on either side. And normally in shopping centers, there's little stands. Mm-hmm. And, here in Australia, there may be someone selling sunglasses and the next one might be selling phone covers or something like that. And as I walked around in Bahrain, it was fragrance, 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 fragrance. They really, really love it.
Yes.
And oud is an amazing oil, which they love as well. So one of the interesting things is that anyone who's listening or watching right now, my challenge to you, if you have a favorite perfume or cologne, try and find the ingredients. Mm-hmm. It won't be on the bottle, it won't be on the box, and you won't be able to find it on a website. And although they'll describe it being, scents of lily of the valley and violets, when you actually, if you can uncover the ingredients somewhere, you'll find that it's all artificially made in a laboratory. And
so it's marketing, not ingredients.
Exactly. Yeah.
They create the fragrance of lily of the valley because you can't really extract some of that from a particular flower. They have to mix things together to make that smell. So the actual ingredients, they didn't squish a flower sometimes.
Yeah. And it's cheaper to make it in a laboratory as well. Plus they've found in things like horse urine, whale vomit, all these different things in there. So oud is a really rare oil because how the tree produces it is it only produces it when it's infected with forgive me if I'm wrong, but it's a bacteria or something, or a parasite. Yes. And in a reaction, it actually produces this oil. So it's not just like eucalyptus, where all our eucalyptus trees produce oil. The tree must be infected. Mm-hmm. So there's a big challenge with, obviously, there's a demand for oud. People are trying to infect more trees, blah, 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 blah. And so, again, you've got whole problems with adulteration and fake ouds coming out and trying to, I'm not sure yet whether I've actually smelt a real oud or whether most of them are manufactured in some way.
Yeah.
I've got a question about how, because I do notice the difference. We do use essential oils now far more at home, and really specific about where we get those essential oils from. And it's a competitor of yours, so I won't say what it is. But I know the company you work for. Obviously, it's very good essential oils and pure stuff. And that's so important. You notice the difference now from a scented candle from the shop, where you nearly feel sick from the chemicals compared to using like real essential oils. It's like, wow, there's a difference. There's a difference in quality. But what are they actually doing, particularly when you're talking about some of these darker, mystical types, which I use a lot with meditation? What are they actually doing to us when we smell them and we have it, as part of the, I don't know, I guess, environment or space around us? What does it actually do? Like, how does it affect us?
Yeah. Well, first of all, from a physical point of view, people just go, oh, I'm sniffing an essential oil, whoop-de-doo, what's that doing?
Yeah.
But when we smell an essential oil, it's picked up by something up our nose called the olfactory bulb, which turns that into an electrical impulse. And that then goes to a part of the brain called the limbic system. Now, the limbic system is a primal animalistic part of our brain that's associated with fight, flight, and fear. And it's also to do with memory. So we've all had a time where we've smelt something that's reminded us of like our grandmother's house or an ex's fragrance or something that brings back an emotion type of thing. Yeah, exactly. Good or bad. And that's when you hear with animals, they talk about, oh, you can smell the fear. That's that part of the brain. Yeah. Now that communicates up to the hypothalamus and then the good old pituitary gland, which most people have heard of, which I like to call the God gland. It kind of is the command center of the body. And they've noticed within 25 seconds of smelling a real essential oil, you can notice changes in other parts of the body.
Interesting.
So when we smell lavender, for example, it down-regulates the central nervous system. Cedarwood encourages the neurotransmitter GABA, which is the opposite to adrenaline. Citruses uplift our mood, and mint oils will help us to pay more attention and stop sugar cravings. So that's on the physical level. Now, on the emotional and the deeper, more spiritual level, many of the indigenous cultures around the world saw no difference between the consciousness of a human or an animal or a plant or a rock or anything type of thing, or a river or a mountain. And so I see essential oils as almost being the soul of a plant.
Yep. Yeah. So about to say, because they've all got souls, so that's the common denominator there, which is beautiful. I love that.
Exactly. And so when we work with, say, frankincense essential oil, it's very hard for us to go to Somaliland or Ethiopia or Oman to be with that tree, but that tree has gifted that to humanity for us to work with and learn the lessons of it. So one of the things I love about frankincense, which is known as the king of the oils, he helps with healing the divine masculine. So where he's really good at that is when we look at the lesson of the tree, how do we get the sap or the resin that gives us the essential oil? The tree allows itself to be injured, it allows itself to be vulnerable, and it cries tears. Now, when we think of masculine, we often think of, sometimes, oh, well, that's a stiff upper lip, the real macho kind of thing. But frankincense teaches us the true king, the true warrior, the true divine masculine in both those that identify as men or women, is when we are strong enough to be strong physically, but also strong and open and vulnerable emotionally as well.
Yeah.
So these are the kind of lessons that, we could sit here and I could talk about 100 different oils and the lessons that when we get to know the plant, we get to know the oil, and we then get to know that lesson wherever we are in the world.
I mean, you've got courses for this stuff, obviously. So We'll get as much free stuff out of you as possible in the hours that we've got, Adam. Yeah. But I mean, you've obviously this is going to make people want to obviously know more and get more information, because it is out there, right? There is stuff that people have studied in each of these things, but over like hundreds and thousands of years. I mean, the Indians and the Vedic texts talk about that as well, and the smells. So it's interesting. You talk about frankincense. What other ones in that family are there that really work with frankincense to work through these things? I guess the mystic kind of stuff. I'm just trying to get into the funsy bits.
Yeah, got you. So me and a good friend of mine, Vanessa Jean, we've written a book called Gifts of Essential Oils. And when I was starting to research and prepare for the book, I started looking at where the oils are gifted from on the plant. So like it's a fruit or a flower or a leaf or a root or that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then I started to notice that there's this kind of ongoing theme of you could match where the oil came from to the 5 magical elements of fire, air, earth, water, and then akasha. And we found that any oil that's gifted from a resin or a seed is associated with akasha or spirit.
Huh.
So all these oils help us get into like the core essence of who we are. So obviously with frankincense, you've got myrrh, which is kind of like the feminine counterpart of that, which helps with the divine feminine. And has a really interesting origin story. You then have things such as copaiba, which is an oil that has very similar chemistry to CBD oil, but a few other benefits from South America. In Asia, you have things called elemi and sweet gum are quite popular. And then even there's a small plant that looks like a kind of dandelion called galbanum, which produces real kind of earthy smelling resin. And those are really great for kind of getting into the core of who we are. And kind of unlocking that as well.
Wow.
Amazing.
I'm loving I loved your explanation, just going back a little bit to the divine masculine energy, because this is something I talk about all the time, and especially to the men in my life as well. And women do it too, or anything in between. They all apologize for crying. And so I love how you mentioned that, because I say actually it takes a stronger person to cry and share your emotions than to hide them away. So
exactly.
That
very much so.
Exactly right. Like the divine masculine, people think it's meant to masculine's meant to be all macho. And so the fact that the oil, the story of the tree of how it comes through, like that's an energy right from, like I've never even thought about that before. So I really love that people would really resonate with the oils you work with and their story. There's so much more than just a pretty smell. That you might enjoy. Like, for example, lavender. You mentioned lavender and I giggled because it's like whatever you said, it activates in your body. For me, it activates, can you please get that away from me, because I can't stand the smell of it.
Wow.
So
interesting.
Some people are really, it's like, so would you think, there you go, there's my question.
Xavier's searching for a question here.
No, it just popped in my head. I didn't have a question. I'm
just giving you shit. That's okay. Go.
Different, huh? If I'm averted to a fragrance like lavender, what is the body saying?
Yes. So this is something. Again, a bit of shameless self-promotion, but I've got an oracle deck, and part of that does look at. A little bit in the guidebook.
You've promoted a book and an oracle deck now. That's okay. I'm counting those.
Sliding them in, exactly.
You need to know where to find, what they're interested in. So it's great.
Yeah. And one of the little sections I squeezed into the guidebook is why we might love and be obsessed with an oil, or why we hate it. Fantastic. And what I've found, and I did this through my tarot readings, is the cards would suggest something about a person, and then I'd say, just smell this oil for me. And they're like, oh, that's horrid. And it would kind of reinforce what was kind of coming through for me in the cards. So I find, every oil has a lesson to teach. Yeah. So for frankincense, anyone who hates frankincense, there would be very much a disempowerment of the divine masculine, or the shunning of the masculine energy. With lavender is obviously very much about that relaxation and allowing. It's quite funny. Vanessa Jean, who I wrote the book with, she calls lavender the duvet of the aromatherapy kingdom. I call it the red wine of the aromatherapy kingdom, because it's like amethyst. They're kind of like those 101s of crystals and oils. They just help. We kind of are drawn to these when we go, there's more to life than this rat race and running around and trying to keep up with everyone else. And I just want to stop and relax and consider what that is. But for a lot of people, slowing down or just allowing is really quite a challenge. And so lavender, if you have an aversion to that, it could suggest something around there, that you always feel this guilt around being still, or that you must remain busy, or taking time off, and that type of thing as well. I will put a little clause in that 75% of what's sold as pure lavender essential oil around the world isn't actually from the lavender plant. So again, I've dealt with people that go, oh, lavender gives me a headache. And I've worked with them with an actual real lavender, and that's not the case. It's just it's either lavender, which is cheaper to grow, or it's cheaper to just make that smell of lavender in a laboratory.
Maybe I should test myself on real lavender then, because my grandmother, for example, favorite human. She loved the smell of lavender and the color mauve, and I'd buy her lavender products, like a teddy bear with the lavender fragrance in, and just be like, put it in a Ziploc bag so I can't smell it, because it's just, so maybe it was like not all natural lavender things that were in her house, and that's what I didn't like the smell of, but maybe real lavender, the actual.
Give it a whirl. Yeah.
I'm good at slowing down now and relaxing, but I have worked on that. Yeah, I used to feel guilty. I back when I used to watch TV, when the ads come on, I'd get up and go do something because I felt like I was being lazy sitting there for too long. So I'm always up and down, finding it hard to relax. So yeah, different now after it became shiny, as I call it. Yeah, that's really interesting. So people can learn, and just from your Oracle card deck, that's a great way to learn.
Yeah, if you don't like an oil, what does it mean? Yeah.
Yeah, I tell that with colors. Like when I'm doing a chakra balance on somebody, I'll explain to them the colors, and I say I'm telling them the color of the chakra so they can learn and go, what's your favorite color? What's your least favorite? Because there's often a reason why they're not wearing that color, or they don't like it around them. It might be to do with something to do with their body, which again, you can relate to fragrances, oils, and crystals as well. So it all coincide together, which should be really great at explaining that too.
Yeah. And so do you find people, if they don't like a color, that's normally their weaker chakra?
Yes.
Or there's an issue around that? Yep. Yeah. Agreed. Yeah, definitely.
There you
I
go.
mean, this is related in like early chemistry as well, from like the 17th, 16th century, where they would look for like I don't know the Latin because I'm not that intelligent, but the translation was the muck is where you find the answer. You look at where things are bad to find where the solution is, because like why is it bad? Like what is the opposite? And we do that with therapy all the time as well. So it's obviously resonates with everything that's got healing. Is like, if something's really bad, that's data, that's information. What does that mean? It's funny with the lavender, it being like the 101 fragrance, which is probably why it's so flooded in the market, where you can get lavender anything. So they'll just do it cheaply because, lavender's good for if you want to sleep well, or it's good for headaches. It's obviously pretty bloody popular. Yeah. But when it's not real. So what are these chemicals then? Like, how do they do it? Is it just a smell? How do they make? I'm kind of doing the opposite of what you do with your essential oils, but how do they make something smell like something and not have the essential part in it?
So you're not getting you just think you are.
How does that? How do you even do that?
I guess what happens is an essential oil is what's called an aromatic, a volatile aromatic compound. So it's basically just a whole bunch of ingredients mixed together kind of thing. So, for example, the things that give lavender its smell are two constituents called linalool and linalool acetate. Now, basically, they're bunches of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen molecules all together. And obviously, we've got to this point in the world where we can manufacture those same compounds.
Yeah.
So I don't know the exact process of how you create that, but it's a lot easier to just create that in a laboratory than, farm some land, grow the plants, hope that the weather is fine, grow it, and all that kind of thing. So that's, it's manufacturing those components that hold that fragrance in the oil. You can, they've found how to make that. But you're not getting, obviously, this from a physical point of view, there's issues there, but also from a spiritual point of view, why I love essential oils is you're getting the power punch or the soul of that plant gifted to you. If it's made in a laboratory, or even if some essential oils, they're really, really cheap, but I also then go, well, where did they come from? And it's like buying cheap clothing. Were the farmers treated right, and the distillers and that kind of thing? What's the ethics behind that type of thing? So, and so what's the energy of the essential oil? It has to come from nature, but has it got a good backstory as well? Was that plant happy?
Like Palo Santo, like if someone goes, they like Palo Santo, and to burn Palo Santo to maybe clear an area or set a space, it's like you need to make sure that that's not just unethically harvested. It's not necessarily unethical to the people, but to the actual tradition of the plant falling itself and drying, because there's a spiritual connection from that tree falling and having the time for it before you can burn it and get its spiritual use out of it. So what you're trying to say is, I guess, not using essential oils and just using fragrances that are made in some synchrotron somewhere, is like having a conversation with an AI bot. You're still having a conversation, but it's missing the soul. It's missing the
analogy. Yeah.
Spot on. Yep, no, I
that
couldn't have said it better.
connection.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And it goes with so
Wow.
many things. Like even
That's
you know,
trippy.
buying coffee and tea. I try to now make sure I buy something that's been ethically produced and picked, and they know they're getting paid well and treated well. And it's like clothes. I was talking about, you know, depending when you buy it from, and even to people who, if they're not vegetarians and they're eating meat, so eating organic and grass fed, you know, it's all energy. And so everything you put in your body and on your body, breathing it in, consuming it, wearing it, everything has an energy. So
very much so, yeah. And we can probably track that in our foods, in our essential oils. But you know, we're also been talking a little bit about crystals, and that's somewhere where no one knows. You know, like if you go to your crystal store and go, oh, you know, was this amethyst or this garnet ethically sourced? They're going to look at you weirdly, type of thing.
So,
but so they, you know, I think the world, you know, when we're living day by day, it seems like we're getting nowhere fast, but bit by bit, these questions are being asked, and, you know, we'll look back in 10, 20 years and hopefully we're all still heading in the right direction, type of thing. But it's always something to be mindful of and do our best with the best intention, I think.
Love that.
We've touched on crystals. I wanted to talk more about fragrances and meditation and stuff like that, but
you do
the whole thing will go there. The whole thing will go because I've obviously used it for thousands of years, so it's obviously an important part of practice. But it's used in every culture, I guess, isn't it? Like fragrances and oils, and in ways of being able to connect higher. What is it that they knew back then that maybe have we lost some of that info, or is there we have a good idea on where all this started, burning stuff? You know,
I think, you know, we touched on it before about that we've kind of our modern day lives have disconnected us from nature in a major way. So if you go back a few hundred years, plants were vital for the survival of any community wherever they are in the world. Not only was it pretty much one of their main sources of food, but it was their only source of medicine. And so obviously they had the plants that were around them, and those were grown seasonally. They weren't always, you know, yes, trade started to happen, but they had to know those. So they had a really intimate relationship with those plants. And so I think, you know, when I'm wanting to learn about plants and essential oils, I'm always looking back to, you know, the Greeks have amazing stories on how plants came to be, and there's Native American and you know, Maori legends and Indigenous Australian on how these plants came to be. And I guess they just had a deeper relationship with them. Whereas we maybe kind of, you know, speed date everything in our lives, and we know a little bit about that and a little bit about frankincense. These people lived with, you know, if you were in that area where, you know, France and Bulgaria, and so where lavender grew naturally, that was just part of your life every day. And so you had a long-term relationship with that. So if you can go back to those stories, they're going to know more about that. Why were they burning it? I guess that early on they were kind of discovering there's a fragrance here. How do we bring that energy out? And fire, I guess, being the quick transformational element would help to kind of release those smells in that way. So I think probably there are some things that are lost throughout time, but if we can go back and kind of go, okay, well, what let me look at that Greek story, or let me look at that you know, Chinese practice. What could that mean in our modern times, and how can we adapt that to now? Yeah.
So it's like civilization has brought that gap away, because there's more of us. We need to build cities, and then we need to have jobs to sustain people to live together. So it's probably back to that Sumerian time or Mesopotamian time where civilizations start. It's like, okay, we've got to do things different. And then part of that culture before that has to live on through that somehow, and we miss bits of it, I guess.
Yeah, and nature will always sneak her way in there, because we can't live without it.
We can't live without it still. Yeah.
Good. I like it.
Yes.
It's like, I don't want to live without it. Like, it's nice to have, you know, to still rely on it. Like, just looking outside at the grass outside, like, I love being able to have a view. And be able to connect with the plants. But yeah, it's like that, trying to find that balance between needing to keep up with the technology, things that are going on now, so we can function and we can have jobs. Like, I'd love to say less technology, but without using Zoom and social media, you know, I wouldn't be able to get in contact with anybody because that's what everybody uses now. So keeping up with that, but then keeping that fine balance of remembering where we came from. And we get so used to quick fixes, like products that come out, because we're so used to being able to access information and things so quickly, then trying to get people to slow down and maybe go back to older, slower ways of doing things and creating fragrances and harvesting and growing your own things. Like, that's a really great way to help us to slow down. But then we also want to just buy things in a packet to make our life a bit easier and streamlined. I know I do. I've got 6 kids between me and my husband, and when they're all here, today I was trying to source butter chicken without having to make it from scratch because they wanted it, and I'm like, I don't have time to make it today. So, maybe the fragrances of butter chicken will be really helpful today. I'll just breathe it in and
the curry leaf. Yeah, it's good for hunger.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, balance in everything.
You mentioned crystals. I'm really interested how, like, I'll be honest, I see crystals and I go, okay, because I don't get it. All I associate crystals with is people, I don't know, it's like the ultimate like pet rock for some people, that they'll give it an identity and a power and put it out in a full moon. And then it's almost like the significance is there because they give it the significance, but I don't know what a crystal actually does. Can you help me? Yeah, can you help me with, like, crystal? I'm not saying crystals don't have power. I'm just saying from my experience, like, I don't get it. So what is it with crystals? Do they have their own energy? Do they have, just because one's green and one's white? What's the difference?
Yeah, awesome question. Well, again, everything that, you know, whether it be plants, which we've been talking a lot about, or astrology or tarot, why I kind of love these is that they've stood the test of time. Like, they've been around for centuries, and, you know, we can go back through into any culture, and rocks or crystals played an important role in their culture. And maybe again, they had more time, they were more present to the energy of that, and were able to notice different things,
like subtle energy behind
the subtle
it.
energies. You know, I sometimes say, you know, they used to believe a lot more in dragons and unicorns and fairies. Maybe they're still around, but we've got too many appliances on and too many lights on that we don't actually notice that they're around, kind of thing. So with crystals, what makes a crystal different from wood or a bit of glass or paper is it has a crystalline structure. So if you get down to a microscopic level, they grow in perfect squares or triangles or hexagons or so on.
They're incredible.
So in the way, like, just like when we, you know, pack our suitcase and we put everything in tidy, you can fit a lot more in. So crystals are renowned for holding a lot more energy than just other inanimate objects in that way.
Okay.
Based on the structure, based on the color, and based on the chemical composition, that's where you can kind of work out what the energy is. But again, there's, you know, there are crystals such as maybe a ruby, or one of the kind of some of the more popular ones, sapphires, emeralds, where even in the West and the East, they were using them for the same kind of purposes. Even beforehand. Now, I remember one guy sitting on, I was on a trip with a whole bunch of people, and a husband came along who wasn't really into spirituality, and he's like, okay, you're the crystal guy. How do they work? And I said, to be honest with you, I don't know how they work. But when I pop a video on, you know, on YouTube and share my experiences and some of the things I've learned about a certain crystal, I then watch reels of comments appear over the following days of, I get that as well. That happens for me as well. That happens for me as well. So I don't know whether it's, you know, the auto-suggestion or people kind of identifying, like you said, them giving it the properties and that type of thing.
Love that.
But good. But what I found at the end of the day is whether it's me going, okay, well, when I put this crystal on, it's going to help me relax, or whether the crystal is actually helping me relax, I relax. And, you know, that's a powerful thing in itself, because it's, again, allowing us to come back to our balance in that way. Now, there are some early research done on certain crystals, you know, we use clear quartz in technology. There's a crystal called shungite, which has been kind of explored a little bit. But of course, research is expensive to do it well, and there's probably other things that people are more interested in researching than crystals.
No one's funding. Yeah, it's about funding.
If I had millions of dollars, I might start a new research facility that researches crystals, and we may find amazing things that we don't know. But there's probably other concerns that would get money over, does green adventuring really help with prosperity or not?
There's probably some conspiracy theory out there to say, oh, no, Adam, they do that. The governments do their research on crystals. It's just not done in the public. Otherwise, there's too much power out there. So
they're in the basement with the aliens and the UFOs.
Maybe. Hey, who knows? It's interesting. I love your kind of coming from the don't know mindset as well.
This is our favorite.
I do.
The don't know mindset. It's beautiful.
Because it's about reality, right? So you can only say from what you've experienced. So it's like, well, from what I've experienced, this happens to me. But also you're getting nodes of experience from people, like it's another experiential node that's not from you, it's from someone completely unconnected that supports the experience that you've had. So you don't know, but when information comes from completely different sources that are pointing towards the same thing over thousands of years, then maybe it's not fallacy of antiquity, because people sometimes believe things just because it was old. But maybe the bits of that antiquity that is supporting experiences now, well, maybe there's some truth to that.
Exactly. Exactly. Standing that test of time. And there's probably a lot of things that have come and gone and we'll never hear about them again. And, but for some reason, whether it's just our fascination with the magical and the mystical, or whether there's some actual merit behind it, if it makes someone's life better, go for it.
That's right. And crystals can be very pretty.
Well, they are pretty.
They are. And that's so people are drawn to them. And if that's what makes people drawn to them, so they can use them for their healing benefits. But I loved how you mentioned intention, because that's my favorite topic. I think intention is massively powerful and underrated, because that's how we manifest. And intention is everything. It's one of my favorite sayings. And so I remember hearing somewhere, it could have been from you even, I don't remember, but crystals might have a list. You look up and you'll read a list of properties and things they're supposed to help with, but then you'll read another article and it says different things again. But then I did learn that you could just hold any crystal and put an intention into it of what it's going to help you with anyway, like to change the energy of it. Doesn't have to be just for what it says it's listed that it does. You're just putting it in that this is a tool that I'm using, and you can put the intention in it to help with that. And I've done that for people when they've bought, say, like a crystal bracelet or something like that. I've had people come up to me and ask me, I don't know why, they just chose me to do it. It just started being a thing. Can you please put intention in this, or this will help me with this, this, and this? So I would do my energy with it, and I say, and just remember that you reiterate when you put this on that that's what it's for. They're putting the in there and their belief that it does that. So I don't know if I'm actually physically doing it, or is it some kind of magic, or is it their belief in it? Just like with anything, I guess.
Yeah, I think it is worth kind of knowing a little bit about the crystal. There are some benefits, because obviously, just like, we've talked a little bit about lavender. If I'm using lavender each day to keep me awake, will that help? Maybe not, kind of thing, type of thing. Except for a small percentage of the population. But what you'll find is, knowing if you needed your taxes done, it's probably better to get an accountant to do it rather than a plumber. A plumber could probably nut it through and do that kind of thing. So I think every crystal could help in that way, but knowing a little bit. But it does come down to your experience with that crystal. And so what I always recommend, before you set an intention, you actually get to know the crystal. Before you marry someone, you want to know what they're like before. And, a perfect husband for someone may not be the perfect husband for someone else. So just because, there's a classic example when I was teaching a crystal class. It was an 8-week class, and we were working with sunstone, and I gave them all homework for the week. And I said, I just want you to carry the sunstone for the whole week, and we'll come back next week and talk about it. And so we came back, and I said, how was everyone's week? And sunstone being this beautiful orange, bright, sparkly kind of crystal, people go, I felt happy, I felt joyous, I felt playful. And as we went around the room, then one person's like, oh, I had a horrid week. And the next person was like, Oh yeah, I had a troubling week as well. And then, about 3 or 4 people in the group had not had had a really troubling week. So I was like, okay, well, let's dig a little bit deeper. Why was your week so bad? They were saying things like my husband was being a jerk, the kids were playing up, my mother-in-law was causing grief. And what we noticed is every single person was having an issue with someone they were close to in their lives.
Mm.
Now, sunstone being orange is connected to the sacral chakra. And the sacral chakra governs intimate relationships. So what we worked out through discussion is sunstone will bring you that joyousness and that happiness, but this is an issue with someone that you're close to. It won't just sweep it under the rug and pretend that everything's lollipops and rainbows. It'll actually make you deal with it and confront it so you can authentically experience that intimacy and that closeness and that happiness. So if you are having a bad day, and the books will tell you that sunstone's a good one for happiness, and you don't have a relationship with sunstone because you haven't worked with it, and yet husband's pissing you off, it's probably not the best crystal to reach for in that way. So getting to know the crystals a little bit can be really helpful.
Unless you want to recognize and dig up if there's an issue that needs
no one does.
You can bring it up and you can deal with it. Let's
no one does. You might need to, but no one wants it. No one wants it. You might need it. No one wants it. Yeah. So can you get to know, that's interesting, getting to know the crystals, and I've heard someone say this before and I don't know if they're crazy or not, but getting to know the crystal like as in its own entity, or getting to know the crystal as in getting to know the properties of that type of crystal? Are we talking itself as its own entity, or itself like, essential oils as being like the soul of the tree? Is this like the color, the soul of the crystal?
I would kind of say, getting to know a crystal is like saying, oh, well, all Leos are the same kind of thing. They all have common traits, but they're all going to be flavored a little bit different. So where a crystal grows in the world has an impact as well. So clear quartz, which is the second most abundant stone in the Earth's core, is, coming from Tibet is very different from coming from the United States, which is very different from coming from Brazil. So there can be those different types of, subtle kind of differences in that crystal. So it's really good. What I find is whether it be crystals or essential oils, people end up speed dating their crystals. So you meet your crystal people and, they've got 15 necklaces on, 18 rings, they've got 4 tucked in their bra, 10 in their pockets, 8 in their handbag and that kind of thing.
Yep, great.
Yeah. And they're like, I don't know what this one's called. I don't know what this one's good for. And, basically what I call people is they're crystal sluts.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I know lots of crystal sluts.
They're an emotional elixir.
Yeah, because they haven't formed that relationship. So I actually encourage something called crystal monogamy, where once pick a crystal a week and just work with that one and sit and get to know it and just go, how was my energy this week? Did I feel happier? Did I notice any difference and that kind of thing? And then just like as we get to know friends, we know that we've got party friends and we know that we've got cry on the shoulder friends. When we have different, needs, we then get to know which crystal works best for us. And if we're like, okay, today I'm doing an interview. Today I've got to relax. Today I've, these things we know. I know which friend, which crystal or which essential oil is going to be best for me to reach for. And so that's what I encourage people to do.
Yeah, you can take notes about it. But I know, like, if you wore 20 different crystals and different necklaces, some of those energies, like you could be wearing sun-based, like fire-based crystals, and then moonstone and like they're all like arguing with each other. So you'd be all over the place.
It's like having a Red Bull and a sleeping tablet and seeing what happens.
Yeah.
Worked for our swimming team. No, it didn't. That was very bad for our swimming team, that Olympics. But that was still Knox and Red Bull. But anyway, shout out to Australian swimming team. Sorry to bring that up again. So that's interesting. So would you encourage then journaling? So trying to keep it, because we're talking about subtle energies here, right? So people that are maybe a little bit cynical, certain things that they're saying might be right. You could have a crystal around you and like still be having a shit day. You can't just blame the crystal for the shit day. You might have just had a shit day.
Yeah.
But then like we're talking about being in touch with a more subtle energy, and the more focused you're on that in that energy world, and the more you're in tune with it, the more it's going to impact and maybe more control you have over what you need. So with that, are you saying literally spend some time with that crystal and journal to work out what's happening or what you notice. Is that right?
I think it's a bit of both. It would spend some quiet time with it, journal, see what comes up, what you feel, if any colors or animals come into mind or fragrances or whatever that may be, do that. But also then, road test it and wear it for a week or carry it for a week and just write down how that is. And then maybe,
Amazing.
I tend to work with different colors throughout the year. So here in this, now that we've just had the autumn equinox, it's very about coming back to the base chakra, grounding, letting go, simplifying. So I'm working with a lot of red crystals and that kind of thing. And I'll kind of then go, move back into the crown chakra and violet, and I kind of go around the wheel of the year with the different chakras. So I will get to know my red crystals year after year after year. So again, you're not going to know in a relationship the full range of a person's personality in the first year, but come back to it year after year after year and that kind of thing. And you'll slowly get to know which ones you're drawn to, and never at the end of the day doubt our drawing. If you're like, I really want to wear that crystal today, friggin' do it. And that's why especially children under 7 should be choosing their own crystals, because their logical mind hasn't kicked in yet.
Yeah.
They're just going with the gut that's been repressed. Yeah.
Amazing. You've just pointed out that there's levels to this game. The fact that you've got seasons that you go with, it's like, wow, there's levels to this game.
So in sync and in flow, because I know there's like that Wiccan energy as well, just being one with nature. And then the fact that you're even being monogamous to your crystals at certain times of the year as well with the seasons, that just, you must feel so in flow. Just like, is your life feeling like that within your body and how, because I love being in flow. So is that helping? Have you noticed a difference since you've been doing that?
I think it's that kind of, if I could give you an analogy, the things that we've been talking about with crystals and essential oils, they're the roots of the tree that keep you grounded during a storm. But I'm whether I'm a eucalyptus tree or an oak tree or a little seedling or whatever, life still whips us all around type of thing. And I think the more we become aware of different things, the more we become open, and we all have challenging experiences. The person that has no interest in spirituality is dealing with their own demons, and the people that are dealing with their own different set of demons type of thing. But I guess that's part of the experience of being alive. But I guess for me, having something that you can lean on and go back to it in the core, for some people it's religion, for some people it's crystals, for some people it's just lighting a candle, for some people it's their cat. But having something to go back to ground yourself and find that peace, that harmony, that balance, I think that's vital for us all to just navigate through this life experience.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
And you've got a harem of crystals.
I have. I am. Yeah, I would be a crystal pimp or a crystal.
Yeah, you're talking monogamy, but it's like, you've got a harem.
Yeah,
seasonal
exactly.
Harem.
Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah.
And I love the wealth of knowledge that you have. Like, you just, the way you know your oils and crystals, and you can just rattle everything off. Goodness, if I try to keep all that in my head, I'd go crazy. I need to just refer to books all the time. So it's amazing how much information you know, which is just fascinating.
Oh, when you love it, it just becomes second nature after a while. And I'm now in my 40s, and I've been using crystals and oil since I was a teenager, kind of thing. So it's kind of it's the longest relationship apart from those with my family I've ever had, kind of thing. So you get to know them over time, and it didn't happen overnight. And I'm always refining and learning new things all the time. So but when you love it, it doesn't seem like work. So it's easier to kind of it's just there.
I remember something I learned from you quite a while ago, Adam, and I can't remember if it was in one of your journals that I purchased or a talk that you did, but found it fascinating because so many people, when they start learning about crystals, they get told about how you recharge them. And then you put it outside in the moonlight, and that's how you recharge it and cleanse it. And then I remember you talking about like the energy of the different crystals and how they're associated with different signs, like a sunstone. Probably not good for the sunstone to put it out in the moonlight to recharge it, because everyone just automatically goes to that because that's the most common thing we hear about. So can you explain that a little bit about, because we've been talking about the energy and being in sync with nature and the different elements. So what is that about, making sure maybe you can recharge or cleanse? Is it recharging or cleansing a crystal in the element that matches it to better service it?
Yeah, I normally use the word cleanse, but I kind of it's the approach of when people say how often do I need to cleanse a crystal? It's how often do we need to give it a holiday? And like we need to cleanse and charge ourselves. So if we've worked hard, we need a lot of breaks, and if we haven't worked that hard, we don't need to. So what you're referring to there with the moon is, we see it's a full moon. People gather all their crystals and they run outside and put them all out there and hope the neighbors aren't watching it in the morning. They bring them all back in.
Yes.
But if you think of the energy of the moon, when we take time to relax under the moon, it's very relaxing, it's very peaceful, it's magical, intuitive, very yin. So some of those crystals like ruby, garnet, carnelian, sunstone, tiger's eye, they've got a real fiery energy. So putting them under the new moon, under the full moon, is almost like, me taking my parents out for a nice night clubbing and doing shots till 3 a.m.
Great analogy.
Depends on your parents. They might be into that.
True.
Yeah. Probably not. Probably not.
The most parents, exactly. So then that's what I talk about is, again, treat your crystals like individuals, get to know them and go, well, what aspect of nature would they resonate with? So some I like to put out under the sun. Others I'll put near an open fire if they're very fiery kind of thing. Others I put out when, it's quite a windy day here in Perth today. Great for putting any crystals associated with the angelic realms, the fairy realms, or thought. Yes. And people are like, it's just out in the wind. But I'm like, well, what do we do when we can't think clearly? We go outside and get fresh air. We've all stood outside when the wind's blowing and let it blow away the cobwebs. So that, grounding crystals, put them on the earth, and love crystals, put them near water in a safe way that's not going to damage the crystal. So I talk about in my diaries that I've created in the past, and my YouTube videos and all my books, is like, this is how I cleanse that crystal. Just like, like my mother's ex-husband, this is why the ex-husband bought everyone beach towels for Christmas. We think about what does each crystal want, and the more you kind of relate to it in that way, then cleanse it the right way. So yeah, the full moon, hopefully I've saved some people some time.
That's amazing.
They don't need to go out.
It's a great tip, and I love that.
The full moon is a quick shop at Christmas. It's like maybe the quick shop's not necessarily going to get all the hits in the room.
I love this. He said, why he's the ex-husband, because he bought everyone beach towels for Christmas.
I love that. I love it. You know what? We're not perfect.
Not everyone likes the beach, mate. Like, you've got to be a little bit more personal.
Exactly.
Presents. I think my family will be singing out for some shit presents too. Okay, interesting. So it's not so the recharging your crystals under a full moon is just like a rule of thumb. It doesn't mean that, or it's not even a rule of thumb. It's a misunderstanding.
I think it is,
of what to do. So you got to understand your crystal and know what sort of holiday it needs from you and your energy. Is that right?
Exactly. Yep. Some people want to go to Bali and other people want to go to Paris, kind of thing. So, but at the end of the day, probably should have said this earlier in the interview, but everything I've said today is not right.
Exactly.
I'm not here to say that this is the way.
This is great.
So what I'm encouraging is, as people are watching or listening to this, is go, oh, that makes sense. Or if someone's like, no, that's bollocks. The full moon is that powerful. I can put all my crystals out there. Then do that. Go down the journey and explore that for yourself. And I would hope that myself as a teacher and anyone else that's a teacher would not claim that this is the right way. I'm speaking what I believe works for me and my experience. And I'm just hoping to unlock a few different thought ideas that people have kind of been blindly following and going, all crystals go under the full moon kind of thing. Another one, if I can share with you briefly, that I get on my little high horse and gallop around about occasionally, is burning things on the full moon.
Okay.
So people are like, oh, I want to get rid of this, so I'm going to burn it on the full moon.
Like witches or...
Well,
what are we burning? What are we burning on the full moon?
Well, often like write down something you'd like to rid from your life, and then put it in a fire and that kind of thing. It's a bit of a common ritual that I hear a lot of people doing.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, if we think about what makes a full moon, we have if we imagine that my head is the earth. Sorry if you're just listening to the podcast, but on one side is the sun, which is the yang energy, and on the exact opposite, you've got the moon on the other. So they're directly in harmony. So you've got yin and yang in harmony. And when we have masculine and feminine together, what happens? We make babies and we make magic, kind of thing. Okay. So the full moon is a time for making magic and manifesting things.
Okay.
So the universe, as we've heard other people talk about before, doesn't know what's good and bad. It only knows what you're giving attention to. So if I write down I want to no longer love my ex-partner. And we, on a full moon, we light that on fire and, and focus on letting that go kind of thing.
Yeah.
Remember that fire is a transformational element, so it makes things happen quick.
Chemistry.
So what you're doing,
it's chemistry.
Yeah. So you've got this manifestation, making babies, making magic energy in the air. You're burning something. You're focusing on love with the ex. Is that actually getting rid of it, or is it just bringing more of that? The best time to burn stuff is basically the dark moon, which is like the autumn of, or the end of the cycle of like letting go in that time. So just be wary again of people, sometimes there are things that you read on the internet.
Yep. I've said it to people before that, like, because that's what I got taught. New moon is for manifesting and full moon is for releasing. And then say, burning it is sending an energy of releasing something that you no longer want. But I don't actually, I don't say burn it on the full moon anymore. I say stand out there and say, can you please take away whatever I don't need?
Yeah.
That's right. That one instead. But burning, I've always said, burn it. Manifesting too, though. That'd be so stronger to manifest, write down all the things you wish and hope for, and then burn that. Is that what you're saying?
I would burn it if it was, especially if we get technical now, if it was a full moon in Leo, Sagittarius, or Aries, work with that fire energy kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay, that's really good.
Aries full moon. Also.
Yeah, if it's in
today.
It is a new moon on the day we're recording this. Exactly. Yeah, in Aries. So with the new moon, that's a really good time. I like to think of the new moon as being like New Year, the dark moon, which is the day before the new moon, and the new moon. It's like New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. So what do we do on New Year's Eve? We think about the year that's just been. We're like, that was good. I love that. I want more of that. I didn't want that. Let's get rid of that kind of thing. And then on New Year's Day, what do? We set our resolutions. So whereas full moons are very much that real, like, get out there, light stuff up, bury things, put things in water, all that kind of stuff. New moons, I actually teach what I call the cup of tea meditation. Go outside, think about, this is the new moon in Aries, so it's about thinking about ourselves, and just drink a cup of tea and contemplate where am I going with looking after myself and putting myself first in the world for the new moon in Aries. And for Taurus, it would be money, and Gemini, it would be education and mental health and that kind of thing as well. So I love to do that. That's what I'll be doing tonight. And why I love the cup of tea is you can't rush it. It's like a healthy cigarette. You can't go outside and go, oh, that's enough. You've got to sit there and sip it and slow down. So the new moon's a good check-in kind of thing of like, okay, what's my next plan? And hopefully in 6 months when the full moon in Aries is, that's when you're like, okay, I've really started to develop that out, and now I'm going to work some magic on that. And then in 6 months later, when it's a new moon in Aries, I'll check in to see how I'm going. So you can diarize that as well.
Well, that's the ad for this week, because they'll get it and they can have some of this new moon energy, which lasts, I guess, for a couple of days anyway, doesn't it? The energy of the new moon. I mean, you've got a little bit of residual lasting there. It's interesting you talk about different nodes of information. I want to throw this in there. I'm a hypnotherapist, so I work with the subconscious mind and the higher self, but through the subconscious mind to get to the higher self anyway. And it's interesting with the subconscious mind, you have to be very, very careful of words that you use, because subconsciously we take on the words, not necessarily in sequence. So if it's something about, I don't want to feel a certain way anymore, in hypnosis, you don't want to highlight feeling that certain way anymore when you're starting afresh. You want to just focus on what you want to do now, like the opposite of that, because that's the energy you're bringing through. And it's interesting you say that during full moon, going out there and burning something, putting that energy into that word subconsciously, and particularly putting a ritual to it, even subconsciously, you're potentially taking on the energy of what you're writing out there rather than the actual action of what you want. So it's interesting from another point of view how that absolutely would have an effect.
That's so true. I teach that to my clients as well. Like because it's all manifesting intention. If you keep talking about what you don't want in life, you're actually attracting it. We're also good at manifesting. We also manifest what we don't want because we say, I don't want to get sick, or, I don't want this to happen, or because
you're getting this sick and this is happening. This is no continuity in the sentence. Just the words have the power.
Body and the energy doesn't hear I don't want. They're just getting the I want, like this, like they're skipping the word don't. So you're attracting it. So that makes perfect sense what you're saying, Adam.
That's all I'm hearing, because you're putting emotion to the word, not the actual sentence.
Yes.
Exactly.
That's great advice with that full moon and new moon and how to work with that subtle energy. Because when you're working with subtle energies, it's not necessarily a continuity of a sentence that your conscious mind is doing. You're now talking about subtle energies. So you gotta be careful how you communicate.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Intentions into crystals as well, like doing that. Is that something that you do with that emotion? You need support and help around it. You need ritual around it to do that as well. Like whether you're doing it with moons or.
Yeah.
I guess, the advantage of rituals, and when we look at rituals or the word spells or anything like that, what that is that kind of gathering, more energies or more focus to, for an intention. So do we need to, cast a magical circle or visualize a bubble of light around us or light incense or do all that to program a crystal? No, but if that enhances the experience, then that's going to make it more powerful. So to program after we've cleansed a crystal, then we want to check in, make sure that crystal's feeling good for us. Then what I suggest, we have our two hands. We have our left hand, for most of us, is our receptive or our moon hand. That's really good for tuning into the crystals and holding the crystals in there. It's not a weaker hand. It's just the more receptive, or it notices more. It's like the kind of quiet guy, not the creepy guy in the corner of the party, but just the quiet guy who notices more. When we want to program a crystal, we move it then into our projective hand, the hand that we write with. So, and then what you want to do is, how I explain programming crystal is, you want to close your eyes and you want to develop an image in your mind as though that is already true. So you want to engage your sight, your smell, your taste, your hearing, and your sense of touch. And people go, well, okay, well, that's not that impressive. But if you imagine, if I was to take away someone's sight, smell, taste, touch, and hearing, would the world still be there?
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, yes. And I'm like, well, how would you know?
Whose world?
Yeah, you can't tell. So although it's just our five senses, it's our five senses that actually creates our world. So if we can change them, and you've probably heard stories about sports, basketball players visualizing shooting hoops instead of doing it, and how that's actually helped them improve their performance and that type of thing. So you put yourself, you create a new reality in your mind, and then you send that reality into the crystal. And crystals are renowned for holding energy. We talked about that before because of their nice crystalline structure. And so they're like a USB. Now you do that for as long as you can. And now that, for some people, maybe 1 or 2 minutes. But it's better to do it for 1 or 2 minutes rather than try it for 15 and go, okay, thinking about, manifesting a new partner. Oh, what shall I have for dinner? Back to the partner. Oh, I need to pay the credit card. Did I call mum? Oh, back. Do you know what I mean? Like, just do it for as long as you can, and that will go. And then keeping that crystal around you, it works as like a support. It's a friend. It keeps that vibration and that energy. So maybe you're not always thinking about a partner or abundance or self-esteem or health, but it's kind of subconsciously putting that little burst of energy into your aura while you're going about your day. So it's back up.
That is so amazing. Just before Xavier wraps this thing up, because we can't have you forever, you've got a spiritual mastery course coming up. How do people find out about that, or do you not? And I just made that up.
Blank. Yeah.
I've got one where we're going to be. I've got a few different things coming up.
Okay.
One that I'm really excited about is another passion of mine is astrology. So I'm actually it's spiritual aromatherapy and astrology, and myself and my friend Vanessa Jean, we've been working on a project for quite a while now where people know themselves as, oh, I'm a Leo or a Virgo or that kind of thing. But when we were born, all the other planets were in different signs, which colors us in. And I've worked out a kind of a program with essential oils where, based on your personal astrology, what oils are going to help you come back into harmony when when your Mercury, when your Mercury aspect, if your Mercury is in Leo, you're going to communicate very differently to if your Mercury was in Virgo. Right. And what oils will be best for you when you're in balance, so that you can bring out the good, and when you're out of balance, you can bring that back. So we're going to talk people through each of that. So the core of it is, yes, we're going to be talking a lot about essential oils, but we're also going to be talking about self-awareness and self-knowledge, and honoring, when it comes to astrology, there's no bad chart or good chart. You don't, you're not a good sign or a bad sign. No. There's favorable and unfavorable. And it's about going, okay, well, now I understand who I am. I know how to use that, and I'm also aware of if I do that in excess or underact, in an underrated way, then I'm not using my full power, or I'm, abusing my power in that way, type of thing. So it's going to be a really fun kind of interactive 6-month course. It'll be live. There's recordings. We've got lots of bonuses. We're jam packing it with a whole bunch of stuff as well. So that's my big thing that will be launching soon, which I'm very, very excited about. But I am your typical Gemini. So yeah, people can find me absolutely in many other places as well.
Bahrain.
But
if you can't get to Bahrain, you've got a website. We've got all of that in the show notes as well.
Yes.
So
there's just been so much gold, Adam, and we feel really blessed because you've touched on so many topics and just given so much information that it just is so beneficial. Like I've learned so much myself, and I feel like I knew a lot already, but we're always learning. And my favorite thing about this whole conversation is that we've brought in yet another guest that has the same opinion that we do on the same wavelength, which it's just the vibration that we attract these kind of guests, I think, Michael, like someone who knows that you don't have all the answers to anything. There's no ego. They're saying that this, the way I teach is the be all and end all. Everything's open to interpretation and your experience. And that is just beautiful. And I think the more teachers out there like you, the better, because we can't say we know everything, and everything's up to your own interpretation and how you feel, which is just beautiful. So thank you for sharing your insights and your time with us today. We really appreciate it.
My absolute pleasure. I could talk about these things until the cows come home. So it's been a joy, chatting to both of you for this time as well.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's been great. Thanks, Adam.
Pleasure. Blessed be.
That's it for another episode. Thanks to our sponsor, Subtle Energy Sciences. Click the link in the show notes to access their full product range of quantum healing technology.
And thank you so much to our Patreon supporters. We're so grateful for your contribution to keep this podcast going.
If you'd like to join our Patreon, you can receive bonus full episodes, early release, and monthly readings and meditations.
We love to hear from you, so please comment on our YouTube channel or email us at mickandthepsychic@gmail.com.
I'm a certified hypnotherapist and timeline regression therapist. If you wish to contact me to explore the source of an issue you're facing, just book a session at hearnhypnosis.com and include the promo code MATP for 10% off. You can contact me on Insta and Facebook at hearnhypnosis.
Check out my website at optimisticxavier.com.au if you feel you'd like to connect with me as a psychic medium, spiritual mentor, or intuitive coach. Include the promo code MATP for 10% discount. You can also find me on Insta, LinkedIn, and Facebook.
We look forward to connecting with you again next time as we attempt to leave no stone unturned.
Bye.
All right, cool. I reckon that should be okay.